Hi everyone! Today I'm finally here with my first video from Namibia. There's actually gonna be 2 more videos coming up because I don't want to turn this into like a 2-hour long series. So yeah, today I'm gonna tell you what's been happening during the first week of my travels. It's gonna be a mishmash of places. In the second video, I'm gonna share everything about my stay with the Himba and Zemba tribes. And then the third video is gonna be about the Etosha National Park, which is where I went on a safari. I haven't actually properly vlogged while I was in Namibia. I was traveling with people that I met for the first time in my life, so I felt a little bit uncomfortable, whipping out my camera and talking to it. And the second reason, which was more prevailing, was the fact that we were without access to electricity for like 5 days during the trip, and on other days it was more or less limited access. So I couldn't really properly charge my camera. I had to save as much as battery as I could. So yeah, I decided not to vlog because that drains so much of my batteries. So yeah, these 3 videos will be slightly different. I'm basically gonna go through everything and talk about my experience, but I have filmed a lot of random clips, so you'll be watching everything in action as I talk. Let's jump right in. Day 1 was basically traveling from Vienna to Windhoek, Namibia. When we were, done with the airport, we actually went to pick up our cars that we rented for the whole trip. And then we went to a hotel in Windhoek where we slept overnight. We didn't really do much there. We just went to get some dinner. The restaurant came to pick us up for dinner because apparently it's not very safe to walk around Windhoek, or I guess certain areas of Windhoek at night. All the houses there that I saw were also like fenced around. They had those like spiky things on top, the ones that you see in prisons, or like electricity around it. So yeah, I'm not sure if that's because of the animals, because of the people, or both. The whole city looked like that. So yeah, they came to pick us up and drove us to the restaurant, and there I had pizza. But before I had pizza, I tried something else. I didn't have an intention, but basically what I'm trying to get to is I ate a worm, and I actually even have some footage of it.
Sandra, non se le vedi? Ma sicuro lei è mal vecchio corto. Odlično je, da se mi to groze. Hitro ne zdravi, hitro ne zdravi.
Zami sok, zami.
To be honest, it wasn't as bad as I thought, because I expected it to be very, chewy. That I think would throw me right off because I can't even eat chewy meat. The closest way I can describe it is it felt like eating a shrimp with its skin on. Just crispy, didn't really have much taste, but it's just the idea in your head that you're eating a worm that kind of puts you off. Let's move on to the next day when we hit the road, and by road I mean gravel road for like 300 kilometers. You have to be quite skilled to drive around. There's a lot of tires that blow up. I think our average was like 3 per car during our trip, which actually wasn't even that bad. There was a lot of driving going on. There was a few interesting things along the way. There was a lot of trees with massive nests on them, which I found so fascinating. We also saw an ostrich. We saw some monkeys by the road. We saw an oryx. Our destination was basically Sesriem, next to the sand dunes, next to the Namib Desert. We stayed there for 3 days. We arrived before sunset actually. So we set up our tents and had dinner and everything. To everyone who thought I wouldn't even be able to set up a tent, me and my sleeping buddy, we were pretty much always the first to set it up and had the least trouble. So I think I have to give myself a pat on the back, okay? I'm not this fancy schmancy girl everyone thinks I am. I can do camping too. It's not my favorite. I still prefer sleeping in hotels, I'm not gonna lie, but if I have to camp, I know now that I definitely can. Anyway, the campsite was actually great. It was like a short walk from the reception. We had toilets and shower nearby, electricity on the campsite, water, so all was good apart from one thing. Camping at night in the desert is cold. Very, very, very cold. That's something that I knew because, you know, geography. But yeah, when I was packing my stuff, I was told that I just need like a regular sleeping bag for down to 0 degrees, which I had. I did luckily bring like fluffy socks with me, a hat, a winter jacket just in case. Thank God I did, because I was sleeping in a hat, in a winter jacket, in fluffy socks, and in my sleeping bag, and it still wasn't enough. My whole body was shaking from being that cold. The only thing I had outside was like my nose area. It was like an ice cube. Not actually sure how many degrees we had at night, but it was really flipping cold. And not only that, but the sleeping mat that I had with me was super thin and it didn't cut it either. I felt every single bone in my body. I felt every little stone under me. 2 nights in a row, it was like a nightmare. I couldn't sleep at all. And then thankfully 2 of my fellow travelers had an extra like sleeping mat with them, or like an inflatable kind of bed, you know, one of those like thin ones. And they offered it to me and I was using that for the rest of the trip. I'm still so thankful to them. And then on the 3rd night, actually, I also got an extra sleeping bag from the reception because they had them. I just didn't know before. Otherwise, I would pick it up, you know, sooner. So yeah, the 3rd night was alright. And then when we moved to other locations, it wasn't as cold anymore. So I was completely fine with that sleeping bag that I had. Let's go to the fun stuff, to the nice stuff. The next morning, we actually had a very early wake-up call. All our wake-up calls were early because we're always trying to catch the sunrise, but this one was especially early. I think I woke up at like 4:30. We drove to Sossusvlei, I believe it's called, which is where the sand dunes are. It was so serene. Sunrise is like my new favorite time of the day. It's just great to be at locations before everyone else comes. I really, really enjoyed it. It was a very chill morning. And I also got the most amazing photo of the sunrise. I love that photo. After the sunrise, we went ahead and drove to Deadvlei. The road to get there is basically just sand, so you're kind of driving off-road. Quite an interesting experience. Lots of jumping and trying to not turn your car upside down. Deadvlei is actually one of those famous places. It's basically a white clay pan. There used to be a river there, but you know, over the years the climate changed. The rain kind of stopped, the river disappeared, but the trees were left over. Because they didn't have any water, they dried, but they never decomposed because the sun was so hot it kind of like scorched them. So the result of that is now Deadvlei, this pan of dead trees. I honestly still can't believe that place is real. It's actually quite humongous and you need to walk through the sand to get there, through the dunes. I think it takes about like 20-minute walk to get there. That was a bit hard for me because I had a knee injury. Before I went to Namibia, I actually couldn't really walk, but it was fine. Got there a little bit slower than the others, but we made it. We actually arrived there around midday, so it wasn't ideal timing to take photos, and there was a lot of tourists there. It was definitely the most touristy place in Namibia. So we actually didn't stay there for a long time, but we did actually come back on our 3rd day there, super early in the morning, again, right after the sunrise, and there was no one there. It was so great to take photos when you have, you know, the whole place to yourself. We also had a local girl named Ari with us the whole trip, and actually one of my fellow travelers is a fashion designer, so we shot her new collection there, which was really exciting. Some people also went to climb onto the dune. There's a dune called Big Daddy there, and it's the largest sand dune in the world. I think it's 300 meters or so high. By the way, sorry if it got kind of noisy, but there's literally a full-blown storm out there. It just started raining cats and dogs. So if you hear anything, that's the rain. Sorry about that. Let's jump one day back again. After we came back to the camp from Deadvlei, a resort that was next to our camp We actually went there and we signed up for a helicopter flight. This was my second time in a helicopter and I love it so much. Just the flying part I really enjoy, but also you get a completely different perspective of the country when you're up in the air. I know it's expensive, but if you can, go do it, because I promise you it is well worth it. In Namibia, we basically flew over the Namib Desert. I got to see all the dunes from the above. There was also a canyon that I wasn't even aware of. When we were landing, we also saw a whole bunch of animals, and one of the unexplained mysteries of the world, in like one part of the Namib Desert, there's this like dotted circles around everywhere. And no one really knows how do they come about. They think it's from, you know, termites, but they're not quite sure. I say it's aliens. I mean, no, I'm just kidding, but could be. Oh my goodness, this rain is really going wild. It's supposed to be completely sunny today. What's happening? When we came back from the helicopter, we actually ended up spending some hours at the resort itself, which had like a pool area with loungers. And then the next day, if we jump back into the future or forward into the future, after we came back from Deadvlei, we had an afternoon to ourselves. So us girls decided to go to the pool because there was a little pool in the camp, and yeah, then we went back to our campsite. We cooked dinner and then spent the last night in the desert. Ooh, there's one exciting thing that happened that night I totally forgot to tell you about. After we finished dinner, some of us then decided to go shoot the stars. The Milky Way there was insane. There's no light pollution, so you can really see like all of the stars if the weather is nice. One thing that I've had on my bucket list for years was to take a photo of the Milky Way, and I got the shot. I am so happy with it. Obviously a camera captures a lot more, but just, you know, walking from the restaurant to our campsite at night and looking up the sky, my eyes started to water because it was so beautiful. Right, so our next chunk of the trip again involved moving a few hundred kilometers. On the way, we stopped in this town called Solitaire. Not sure if I can call it town. There's probably like 10 people that live there. It's famous for old cars. There's these old cars scattered around that you can, you know, take photos of, jump on, whatever you want to do. And the place is also famous for the best apple pie in Namibia. Of course, I gave it a try. I have to say it might be the best in Namibia, but it was one of the worst I've ever tried. If you're looking for a good apple pie, go to Keukenhof near Amsterdam. That's the place where I ate the best apple pie in the world. Oh, I still dream about it. I would go back just for the apple pie. Our next stop on the way, where we had lunch, was this rock in the middle of nowhere called Boco Theater. Something along those lines. My German's rusty. We just had our lunch there. Some people even climbed up. It's literally like a 3-minute stroll to get there if your knee is not completely battered. But our next stop, which was, I guess, the main stop of the day, was Walvis Bay, which is this, I guess, resort town. Very different from the rest of the places that I saw in Namibia. Really nice, modern, big houses. It's by the sea, and there's actually a lot of flamingos there, which is why we went. Unfortunately, the weather wasn't great, so I didn't get any amazing photos. It was very gray and a bit depressing. But yeah, I saw a whole bunch of flamingos that weren't very pink, I have to say. But then we drove to another location close by, and there was flamingos who were like a lot more pink. So I guess those eat more shrimp. We also saw some pelicans, and then we drove to our final destination of the day, which was Swakopsmund, a proper town, city. We just basically went there to stay there overnight. Sleeping in a hotel was so nice after that like freezing experience in the Namib Desert. We also went to dinner to this Italian restaurant which had really great food. I also tried a shot of amarula, which is an African drink that day. It's like a liquor. Apparently it's similar to Bailey's. I actually quite like it, so I brought some for like gifts. While we were there was actually this group of gospel singers that walked in and they performed for us. I was dragged on as well, all of us single ladies were. I had to stand there and move, and I don't know what. It was very uncomfortable for me because I have social anxiety, but it was fine. Anyway, they were great singers, and all my uncomfortableness was paid off when they sang a song from The Lion King. The Lion King is the soundtrack of my childhood. It was my favorite animated film. It still is. And there's a new one coming out in a couple of months, which I am so excited about. But yeah, I love the music from The Lion King, and that just totally made my evening. Let's move on to the next day. Some of us actually woke up again very early before sunrise to go take some photos because we're crazy. But there's this pier in Swakopsmund and we just went to shoot some like long exposure photography. Don't know if you're familiar with it, but if you've ever seen a photo of like really blurred waves and water and just very soft, that's it. And we had breakfast, which was also very good. And we hit the road again. We first stopped at the Skeleton Coast. The Skeleton Coast is supposed to be one of like the most dangerous coasts. There's a lot of shipwrecks there. We saw one. But yeah, it's supposed to be quite turbulent because of the closeness of the Namib Desert. I really wish I saw that from the helicopter because I'm sure it looks so cool. But basically you have the desert here, you have the beach, and you have the ocean. While we were there was also a lot of local guys who were selling rocks, you know, like crystals and stuff like that. That's what basically a lot of locals do in Namibia. They sell like crystals to tourists or maybe jewelry or something like that. One of the guys was there, he speaks, you know, the click language. I think it's called khosa. So yeah, he demonstrated us how the language works. He was like drawing the letters in the sand, and I thought that was really interesting.
Motovigel, Nari Utas.
Nari
Utas.
People say, how are you? I say Madisa.
Madisa.
Easy for you.
Madisa.
Nawa.
You see, we got
Nawa
4
is
clicks.
Wambo.
Like
Nawa
this one is
Wambo.
called.
Yeah. That one.
This is called.
Other
This is
one.
called. This
Other
is
one.
called.
Yeah, beautiful.
Majority of the words start with one of the clicks. That's how we are talking. In the alphabetical, like you, if you write a you in the sentence, put something like this.
Yeah.
Huh?
For example, if you write the O, you put something like this.
Aha.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
And
German umlaut.
maybe if you write the A,
Hey, yeah.
put something like this. It's those are also included in the alphabetical
Clicks
letters.
included?
Yeah. But these ones first and then the alphabeticals. If you say Kami, you say the water.
Nami. Oh.
Schau mal.
Aha.
You use this click.
Ah.
The water.
Mam il.
Yeah.
After we drove to Cape Cross, which is where the seals are. You drive up to Cape Cross, you step out of the car and you have seals laying all around you. It's crazy. Also quite smelly, so be prepared. Although I have to say it's not as bad as some people make it out to be. It's just like stepping into a really smelly barn. Don't let the smell put you off, just be prepared. Maybe take like a scarf with you or something. It was really cool to just walk around and observe them. Some of them are quite aggressive. They like fight, and there's a lot of moms with babies around, so you have to be a bit careful because if you step too close, they'll like come at you. I had one like running straight into me at one point. I didn't do anything. I didn't get too close. But yeah, they are a bit crazy. It was really cool to see. I don't think I'll ever be as close to the seals as I was here. And now let's cover our final destination of this video and final destination of the day, Spitzkoppe. This massive monolith in the middle of nowhere. It actually really reminded me of Kata, which is a rock in Australia that's close to Uluru. It's very similar in terms of like a form and like a color. They're both like orange and they're both oval, like they have these oval rocks. You can like climb onto like the smaller rocks. I maybe didn't have the best experience there because I couldn't climb up, again, the knee. So I didn't get to see all those amazing views, but the rest of the people from my group that went up, they said it was amazing. We were actually there for 2 days. We arrived just at sunset, so again we set up our tent, all kind of scattered everywhere and just went our own way to take some photos. Then we went to this bar area that was a couple of kilometers away at the reception because the camp was that big. We actually had to drive to the reception here. If you're going, one piece of advice, it's really hard to find a reception because the park is so big and there's no signs pointing you towards it. If I went there alone, I would definitely find a campsite that's closer to the reception, also because there's a few toilets there and like a few outside like made up showers. Yeah, they were too far away from us, so we didn't really get to use them. Well, our car actually drove there just specifically to go to the toilet in the morning. But anyway, maybe it was also great that we went there because, you know, I had to get used to like peeing out in the nature because I had to do it several times after that on the trip. The second day there, we actually had a day to ourselves. So we could do whatever we wanted, but obviously there was not much things to do. There was nothing to do, to be honest. I found this little rock on our campsite and I climbed onto it and I just chilled there for a couple of hours. I had my iPod, listened to the music, I wrote some like notes. Yeah, I was just chilling. Not something that I'm used to because I rarely chill these days. So it was definitely good to, you know, rest my head. And then our group went to this bar place at the reception. We're just sitting around having drinks. There was some local kids that came around, so we kind of hung out with them. In the evening, we actually drove around the rock and we went to take some sunset photos, and we also went to see some graves, some old graves of, I think, Bushmen people that were there, that are I was told some kind of like a national treasure. And yeah, then we went to sleep and that was that. One thing though, one piece of information that I didn't know while we were there, that I only found out when we were on our plane back to Europe, was that apparently we had a snake at our campsite. One of my fellow travelers spotted it, but he didn't tell us about it because he didn't want to freak us out. If I knew there was a snake around, I don't think I would be chill. Anyway, I have nothing left to say about this chunk of the trip. I mean, I have a lot to say, but you know, you don't have time to listen to me for like hours and hours on end, so I try to like cut it down. Like I said, there's 2 more videos coming. The next one is about my absolute favorite experience in Namibia when we stayed with the Himba and the Demba tribes. Till then, make sure to subscribe to my channel if you don't want to miss any of my future videos. And if you enjoyed watching this one, please give it a thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. Yeah, I'll see you when I see you. Probably next Sunday. Bye!
About to leave, already packing. Come with me, I'm not really asking.